Lesson 1: Global Media Culture. The media have an important impact on cultural globalization in two mutually interdependent ways. First, the media provide an extensive transnational transmission of cultural products. And second, they contribute to the formation of communicative networks and social structures. That is, according to Harvard 1999. The rise of new global media. Examples of this are Apple's iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, with great power has imposed their systems on large portions of the world. That is according to McChesney 1999. The global media. This implies the traditional media such as newspapers, TV, and movies, as well as the newly emerging media on or related to the internet, are increasingly dominated by a relatively small number of huge corporations. The impact of the global media order is complex as reception of the cultural products is never uniform. Media flows and contraflows create part of the wider struggle over information flows which define power relations in the global information economy. We have here evolution of media and globalization. Media is a part of everybody's life today and in the past. Development of speech and communication is a great breakthrough in the lives of people. Lowell 2014 gave 5 periods to the study of globalization and media: oral, script, print, and electronic and digital. We have here 5 evolution of media. First is oral communication. Language was developed around 1.75 billion years ago. Language helps man to settle down, improve social, economic, and political life. Man, through language, is not only confined within his territory but created across continental trade, which created cities and later civilization. Second is script. It is any particular system of writing, the written means of human communication. First, writing was recorded over 4,000 years ago. With its discovery, it makes communication easier, wider in space, and can last longer. Third is print, printing press. Invented around 4th and 5th century AD. Its discovery led to two important consequences. First, it has changed the very nature of knowledge. It preserved and standardized knowledge. Second, it encouraged the challenge of political and religious authority because of its ability to circulate different views. Fourth, electronic media. It was introduced in the beginning of 19th century. This requires electromagnetic energy, electricity to use. Examples are telegraph, telephone, radio, film, and television. In 1973, invention of cell phones dominated in the world. Lastly, the digital media refers to audio, video, and photo content that has been encoded, digitally compressed. Computer is considered the most popular and influential digital media to globalization.
Cultural globalization process. So what is cultural globalization process? It refers to the sharing of ideas, meanings, hobbies, and values around the world in such a way as to extend and intensity social relations. This process is marked by the common consumption of cultures that have been diffused by the internet, popular culture, media, and international travel. Cultural globalization is a phenomenon by which the experience of everyday life, as influenced by the diffusion of commodities and ideas, reflects a standardization of cultural expressions around the world. So there are three types of cultural globalization. First is hybridization. When John Piaget suggested that cultural globalization involves human integration and hybridization, arguing that it's possible to detect cultural mixing across continent and region going going back many centuries. Cultural hybridization is refers to the mixing of Asian, African, American, and the European. So, in other words, hybridization is making of global culture as a global melange. For example, the Creole language. This language is a new developed from simplifying and blending a different language that come into contact within particular population at a specific point in time. For example, is the Louisiana Creole, which is a combination of African, French, and English language. Second is the homo- homogenization. So, homogenization is emphasize the transfiguration of worldwide diversity into a pandemic of westernized consumer culture. Or, in other words, homogenization is an aspect of cultural globalization and the main characteristic and refers to the reduction in cultural diversity through the popularization and diffusion of a wide array of cultural symbols, not only in physical object but in customs, ideas, and the values also. For example, are the diffusion of Hollywood movies that can be seen all over the world, or the global brand that people all around the world that aspires to possess. And these brands often not only represent the products but also a certain lifestyle. And third is the conflict intensification. So, Clash of Civilization, Samuel Huntington emphasized the fact that while the world is becoming smaller and interconnected, the interaction between peoples of different cultures enhance the civilization consciousness that in turn invigorate differences. Example of intensification. If you have a fear of flying, there might be an intensification of this kind of feelings as you board the plane, and again when you take off, that is your feelings of fear might increase or intensify.
See globalization of culture and media. Culture's globalization is frequently attributed to worldwide mass media. Through worldwide news broadcasts, television programming, new technology, films, and music, the mass media are considered as playing a vital role in furthering globalization, facilitating culture interchange, and numerous flows of information and image between countries. The development of global capitalism, new technologies, and the increasing commercialization of global television, which has occurred as a result of deregulation policies adopted by various countries. Letter D. Cultural imperialism. The dominance of one culture over another is known as cultural imperialism. Cultural imperialism can take the shape of a general attitude or a planned, active, and formal policy that includes or results from military action. Cultural imperialism, Tomlinson, 2012, refers to one or more cultures pushing themselves on other cultures, more or less purposefully, destroying local culture in whole or, more frequently, in part. When the culture and way of life of a group of people, whether an ethnic minority or an entire nation, is displayed by others, it is known as culture imperialism. Based on the theory of cultural imperialism, the less economically prominent cultures essentially import example of culture from wealthier countries, mainly in Western countries, which have economic mean necessary to produce a majority of the world cultural media, mostly via global transmission of media.
Example of cultural imperialism. Brand name products, mass-produced food, and, probably most importantly, video media are examples of American cultural imperialism. While this may have some positive impacts in terms of promoting women's rights or racial equality, it may have a negative impact on viewers' perceptions of their own country or other non-American cultures.
Term cultural imperialism was coined by Herbert Schiller in his book Communication and Cultural Domination in 1976. It refers to the idea of the United States imposing cultural influence over the rest of the globe, with a special focus on third world countries.
Chapter 4: A World of Ideas, Lesson 2.
In this lesson, we will be able to first, examine how globalization affects religious practices and beliefs. Second, discuss the characteristics of each type of religious organization. and describe the relationship of globalization with the world's major religion. Before we proceed to the presentation, we will define first what is globalization. Globalization. It is a historical process by which all the world's people increasingly come together to live in a single social unit. It is also the process of interactions and integrations among people worldwide. In theological or religious perspective, globalization calls forth religious response and interpretation, and it also encourages religious pluralism, because this globalization made this religion to spread and scattered on a global scale. With that, there are three paradigms that was formed regarding the role of religion in globalization process. The first paradigm is the modernist, second, the postmodernist, and the third, the pre-modernist. Now let's proceed to the effects of globalization to the religion. When the globalization made a role in the religion, there was a spread of interrelations of various religious groups, ideas and practices, and their ideas of the meanings and values of particular spaces. This happened because many religions crossed the boundaries. Most of them was spread by the refugees, immigrants, and aggressors. Due to the cultural differences, the religious beliefs, traditions, or ideas and practices was also affected. Religion also make good use of the technologies of globalization to emerge, spread, and flourish. However, there was a hybridizing effect because numerous religious identities come to the fore and assert themselves as the world religion even if they're not. And the last, globalization transforms generic religion into a world system of competing and conflicting religions. Now let's proceed to the different types of religious organization. Letter B, types of religious organization. There are three types of religious organization that exist according to sociologists. First is church, second is sect, and the third one is what we call as cult. This church is divided into two subtypes, the ecclesia and denomination. When we say church, it is a large bureaucratically organized religious organization that is closely integrated into the larger society. The two main types of this are ecclesia and denomination. These ecclesia and denominations are both large bureaucratic religious organizations. However, the difference is the ecclesia is a formal part of the state while denomination is not a formal part of the state. The second type is a sect. It is a group that has separated from an established church and they have different religious beliefs from those of a larger group. It is usually a small religious organization that is not closely integrated into the larger society and that often conflicts with at least some of its norms and values. The third one is cult. It is a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. It is somewhat similar to a sect but has only slight differences. The first difference is that they originate outside of the religious mainstream and have not broken away from a larger denomination. Second, they are often secretive. And third, they rely on charismatic leadership based on the extraordinary personal qualities. Now let's move on to the major world religion. As what I have mentioned earlier, globalization encourages religious pluralism. It is because there was an overlapping of distinct ethics and interests. Essentially, there are 5 major world religions that exist. First is Christianity, second, Islam, third, Hinduism, fourth, Buddhism, and the last one is Judaism. The first type of religion is Christianity. It is the biggest religion and they follow the teachings of Jesus Christ in the Bible. The second is Islam, wherein it is the second largest of religious groups also, and they follow the teachings of Prophet Muhammad in their holy book of Quran. Third is Hinduism. It is the oldest and the third largest groups, and they have religious sculptures such as Vedas, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. Next is Buddhism. This Buddhism has the ultimate goal, which is to attain nirvana. And when we say nirvana, it is the cessations of desire and hence the end of suffering. The last type is Judaism. It is the world's oldest monotheistic religion dating back nearly 4,000 years. The followers of Judaism believed in one God who revealed himself through ancient prophets. It also influenced the Christianity and Islam.